page 25, Unit 7 from our Social Studies workbook. Topic: the movement of Jamaica's population. And here we have a few pictures. We have a picture of a bus down at the bottom that says to Norman Manley International Airport. We have someone who has a big bag who appears to have Jamaican colors on it. We have a man. I am going to live in foreign, so he says, and he has a few items with him, all dressed up and ready to go. Let's see what the unit says. People all over the world move from one place to another. They use different means of transportation such as cars, buses, trucks, trains, bicycles, bikes, ships, and aeroplanes. People also travel on foot or use animals as other means of transportation. In Jamaica, some people move from one parish to another, while some move within the parish. There are people who also leave Jamaica to live in other countries. The movement of people from one place to another is called migration. Some reasons for migration. People migrate for different reasons. And we have one. They lack educational opportunities. Maybe they want to go to Kingston so they can go to UE or UTech or nursing school or one of those educational institutions that may not be in rural Clarendon. They are looking for employment or for better paying jobs. So you're living way up in rural Clarendon and you have your degree, but there are no jobs there. So you move somewhere else to get a good paying job. They move away from an area with crime and violence. For example, in certain areas in Kingston, when things get hot, people move away to the country because they don't want to deal with the crime and violence. They lack amenities. These are light, water, telephone, and good roads. So they move to places where they can have these amenities. Number 5, they want to have access to recreational and leisure facilities. So in the country, everything boring and boy, they have nothing to do, and those are some of the complaints that people may genuinely have. So they want to move to an area where they can have access to these facilities and enjoyment and so on. 6, they are moving from a highly populated area. So some people might live in a housing scheme and say, boy, listen, I want to be able to walk up and down in my yard without anybody looking at me, right? Or the houses are too close together. Number 7, they move if there is a natural disaster and there is a loss of property. So they could have been living in Kingston on a gully bank, and the gully bank tear away, and they move back to the country. Or they could be living in an upscale community like Ocean Terrace out by Rockfort area there, and after a hurricane the houses were destroyed and they had to move out. Number 8, they move if their job require them to be transferred from one place to another. For example, teachers, policemen, bank managers, and ministers of religion. So prime example here would be that of policemen who may be transferred from division to division. So he might have his house in Clarendon, but he is actually working in Montego Bay. Okay. And finally, they move in search of better healthcare facilities. So grandma is in the country, grandma is sick, and she needs to go to the doctor more often than she used to. So instead of living in the country, where she's far away from the hospital and far away from good doctors, we bring her to Kingston where she has access to good doctors and many hospitals. Let's move now to the next subheading that says some effects of migration on a country and its people. So it says many professionals such as teachers, doctors, nurses, lawyers, accountants, people in executive and managerial positions, and other workers migrate to other countries. In Jamaica, for example, it costs a great deal of money to train these highly skilled people. When these trained and highly skilled professionals leave the country to work abroad, it creates a great loss to the country. This great loss in the workforce is called a brain drain. The migration of highly skilled workers has its advantage. It is not a total loss to a country. In Jamaica, for example, immigrants send back large sums of money and goods to support their families and businesses. The money, which usually comes in the form of foreign exchange, is called remittances. Sometimes parents migrate and leave their children in the care of relatives and friends. Due to the lack of direct parental care, some children miss their parents and become rebellious. In some cases, caregivers also abuse these children. So we turn now to page 26, and it says, migrants are people who move to live in another place in their own country or in another country. Migrants may be categorized as follows. We have here some columns in our table. We have types of migrants, the definition, and we have the examples. So we have internal migrants. Definition: people who move from one place to another within the same country. So it's internal, inside of Jamaica. So example, people moving from Manchester to Kingston. So that's internal migration. We have external migration, where we have people, definition now, people who move from their country to reside in another. So here's the example, people moving from Jamaica, you leave Jamaica to the United States. We have involuntary or forced migration, people who are forcefully taken from their country to live in another. For example, Africans taken to the Caribbean to work as slaves. So you didn't want to come, you were forced. We have voluntary migration, people who choose to leave their country to settle in another country. Families moving from Jamaica to Canada or England. We have temporary migration, for example, or temporary migrants, for example, people who will return to their original place of residence. For example, men who go to Canada and the US as farm workers, and women who go to the US as hotel workers. So they will go for a season and they will come back. We have permanent migrants, people who do not plan to return to their original place of residence. For example, people who permanently reside in Canada, the US, England, or Guyana. We have seasonal migrants, people who visit another country for less than 6 months, and for example, Europeans, Americans, and Canadian tourists who visit Jamaica during the winter season to get away from the cold. So they will stay here for a few months, but usually less than 6 months, to be seasonal. We have lifetime, and this would be one who does not live in the parish in which he or she was born. A person, an example, a person who was born in Clarendon but now lives in Portland. So here we have the picture of the lady, I am now living in Portland. Let's turn over to page 27, and here we have an exercise. It says, state the difference between a migrant and a tourist. A migrant and a tourist. So look back over the definitions and see if you can come up with that. 2. List some ways in which the receiving or host country benefits from the brain drain of another. So if all our doctors and highly skilled professionals go to another country, how will that country benefit? So we go down now where it says on your own. Imagine that your parents have migrated to another country. You and your 3 siblings are left with your aunt. Tell how the situation is affecting you and your siblings. 2. What are some of the positive and negative effects of migration? 3. Use the world map to locate places to which Jamaicans migrate and list some of these countries. 4. Research and record the data for the grades 1 to 6 classes in your school. So we have the grades, we have the number of males in each grade, the number of females in each grade, and the total population for the grade, and then overall for the school. So also you could get the total males in the school, the total females in the school, and so on. So this is something that you will have to take your time to do, good research, and it will help you to understand the concept of a census.